Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure that I welcome you today to this important event of our Baker Institute Energy Forum. This is a special week for Houston, as most of you know, the world's energy capital, and there is no better week to make the point about Houston's special position in the international oil world than the Offshore Technology Conference Week. We are very fortunate to have with us tonight an outstanding oil industry leader who is charged with managing one of the largest oil and gas expansions that we are seeing in the world today. Engineer Funsho Kupolokun, who has a name that is almost as difficult as mine, but not as difficult, leads the commanding heights of Nigeria's vast oil and gas enterprise, and we are glad that he was able to find the time in his busy OTC schedule to come to talk to us tonight about Nigeria's gas industry. Nigeria, as I'm sure everyone in this room knows, you're the experts, is poised to become one of the world's most important liquefied natural gas suppliers, with its output expected to rise from 17 million tons per year to 22 million tons per year by 2007, and more expansions planned for the coming decade. Nigeria is ranked as the seventh largest holder of proven natural gas reserves and is a key supplier of both oil and gas to the United States. According to Baker Institute forecasts, Nigeria is expected to represent close to 7% share of international gas exports, replacing suppliers whose supply potential will decline in the coming years, such as Canada, Norway, and Indonesia. The challenge for Nigeria in forging a successful resource development program will be, amongst others, to optimize the benefit that program brings to the people of Nigeria. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has been working hard against long-standing internal Nigerian political challenges in recent months as local domestic conflicts have affected its operations. Engineer Kupolokun has been instrumental in leading NNPC to developing new strategies and an expansive vision for the future of Nigeria's energy industry, including a major re-engineering of the company's operational framework. So it's in everybody's hope that all of these efforts will bring what we all hope for, a better future for the people of Nigeria. He has, to his credit, been driving the oil and gas industry in Nigeria to extend its focus beyond traditional boundaries, embarking on an ambitious program to monetize Nigeria's natural gas resources, to improve the delivery of vital electricity services to the people of Nigeria, and to build an initiative in producing ethanol from sugarcane and cassava. Engineer Kupolokun, the Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of NNPC, comes to speak to us this evening as part of our ongoing program on the role of the national oil companies throughout the world. The Baker Institute is engaged in a 2-year study of the NOCs and their increasingly prominent position in the global energy equation. We would like to take this opportunity to thank NNPC for its support in putting together tonight's outstanding program. I am very much looking forward to hearing our speakers' remarks, but also viewing NNPC's video presentation, which will be shown after my remarks, video presentation, and then our distinguished speaker will come to the podium to present his remarks to you. We are pleased to have the participation of such a large delegation of leaders from NNPC as our guests this evening, and to host our old friend, Mr. Delano, who has participated in Baker Institute events in the past. I would also like to thank the sponsors of our Baker Institute NOC study, the Baker Institute Energy Forum, the Petroleum Energy Center of Japan, with whom we do much work, and Accenture for their support toward this program. It is the participation and support from these sponsors that have allowed us to develop what others say one of the best research programs in the United States on the geopolitics of energy. We thank the University of Texas's Center for Energy Economics for co-hosting tonight's lecture. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight. First the video, and then our distinguished speaker. There is a very detailed biography in the program notes. I will not go into the details of his very distinguished career in the Nigerian energy sector, which began in 1971 in the production department of Shell. After holding various positions in the oil sector of Nigeria, he has served in the Nigerian National Oil Company from 1977 to 1988, when he headed NNPC's newly formed London office. In 1999, Engineer Kupolokun was appointed Special Assistant to the President of Nigeria, Mr. Obasanjo, on petroleum matters, where he was charged with developing long-range plans for reform and new optimization strategies for Nigeria's energy industry. Let me add that we were honored to host President Obasanjo here at the Baker Institute in 2003. Mr. Kupolokun now continues his work as Group Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of NNPC. Join me, ladies and gentlemen, in first the video and then in welcoming our distinguished guest. Thank you.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation is an oil and gas conglomerate transforming from an upstream and downstream operator to a global energy player for global competitiveness and efficiency. We are on course to meeting the short and long-term national aspirations in oil and gas reserves and production. The corporation is undergoing systemic transformation through a deliberate effort to reposition it as a global energy player. The enormous challenges of doing business in a rapidly changing local and global business environment is obvious. Project PACE is therefore a welcome development that has far-reaching implications for our business. The Gas Master Plan is NNPC's strategy document for managing Nigeria's natural gas resources. With 184 trillion cubic feet of gas resources, Nigeria has the 7th largest gas reserves in the world and growing rapidly. Oil reserves have grown steadily to over 35 billion barrels and still growing. Oil and gas production capacity is growing rapidly with aspiration to reach 4.5 million barrels per day by 2010. Gas monetization projects are being accelerated through major LNG initiatives, independent power projects, and West African gas pipeline project. These initiatives will contribute to meeting the 2008 gas flare-out target. The Nigerian content vision is being achieved by developing in-country capacity, indigenous capabilities, domiciliation of oil and gas activities in-country, and positioning Nigeria as the hub for service delivery within the Gulf of Guinea zone. The renewable energy project will feed on large volumes of sugarcane and cassava to produce the biofuel for public transportation. The electronic petroleum marketplace and joint qualification system have gone live to deliver competitiveness and transparency. In recognition of the challenges in the Niger Delta, NNPC is at the forefront in seeking a holistic solution to the developmental needs in the Delta through sustainable economic re-engineering of the region backed by all stakeholders. We are now building and installing floating mega petrol stations in the Niger Delta. Indeed, NNPC is poised to realizing its vision and mission. A brighter future beckons. This is NNPC.
The founding director, James Baker III Institute for Public Policy, Rice University, Ambassador Edward Jerejem, the Wallace S. Wilson Fellow in Energy Studies at the James Baker III Institute for Public Policy and Associate Director of the Rice University Energy Program, Army Meyers Jaffe, the head of the Center for Energy Economics, Bureau of Economic Geology, the University of Texas at Austin, Dr. Michelle Foss, captains of the oil and gas industry, my colleagues from NNPC and other distinguished Nigerians here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Ambassador, thank you for the kind words. It's a great honor for me to deliver this presentation at the Baker Institute Energy Forum. I would like to express gratitude to the two great institutions, the James Baker III Institute for Public Policy, Rice University, and the Center for Energy Economics, Bureau of Economic Geology, Jackson School of Geosciences, the University of Texas at Austin, co-sponsoring this event. NNPC shares the goals of the Baker Institute Energy Forum in serving the needs to improve understanding of the complex political, cultural, religious, economic, and social forces that influence open access to energy resources and their equitable distribution. Many senior statesmen and energy industry leaders have visited the Baker Institute Energy Forum to discuss a variety of public policy issues with its members, including President Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria, in November of 2003. President Obasanjo discussed his vision for Africa and various initiatives to ensure peace, stability, and economic growth in Africa and in Nigeria in particular. Indeed, he discussed the fundamental but difficult institutional reforms and government's determination to, and I quote, leave a lasting legacy in terms of a solid foundation for sustainable socio-economic transformation, unquote. It is my delight to address this august gathering on the Nigerian oil and gas sector reform within the context of President Obasanjo's economic reform agenda with specific focus on the Nigerian gas sector and Nigeria's initiatives to meet increasing global energy demand, whilst at the same time driving Nigeria's economic growth. So, let's say a few words about gas. In doing this, I'll take you through a few items. Overview of the energy industry, some snapshots about the industry. Then we discuss delivering economic growth, the Nigerian gas sector and economic growth, strategic interventions for sustainable supply and evolving success stories in the Nigerian gas sector, and a few concluding remarks. But to start with, where are we today? Of course, we begin to witness a bound shift in prices, and this is triggering major changes in the global energy landscape. And what is more, for oil, prices will be sustained in view of unrelenting demand in Asia, particularly China. I was with the ambassador for a few moments, and he is of that same view. Demand growth in Asia forecasts at about 4% relative to global average of some 2%. And this is underpinned by relatively low per capita oil consumption, which has significant scope to grow. And if that happens, you know the resultant effect of that. And what about gas? The short-term medium imbalance between global LNG demand and supply suggests that high gas prices will be sustained. If this is happening for gas and this is happening for oil, then something must happen. We do need to rapidly grow capacity additions, and unless and until that is done, we will not be able to relieve current situation. So, where does Nigeria fit in this equation, in this new game? For us, as aspiration, we intend to deliver some 40 billion barrels in terms of reserves by 2010, grow production capacity to some 4.5 million barrels per day, maximize oil and gas sector value to the economy, and transit from an oil industry to an integrated oil and gas industry. And on the gas side, of course, we must create as much revenue from gas as oil within the decade, address environmental issues, develop the domestic gas market, and create new industries out of the old oil industry. Have we been delivering in the past? The answer is yes. You could see reserves growing steadily over the years. And between 96 and now, over 7 billion barrels of reserves from the deep offshore, some 19 trillion cubic feet of gas in the deep waters, and that is continuing. In terms of production capacity, and this means reality check, because we stack this up on project by project basis, and the whole world knows where these projects are coming from and when they are getting on stream. And indeed, for this year alone, 2006, it is my pleasure and privilege to announce to you that we will deliver additional 500,000 barrels per day to the world. However, we do know that the Nigerian economy is heavily dependent on oil revenue, some 82% dependency, the one in red, you could say. However, despite the dominating government spend and revenue earnings, the industry has had a disproportionately low contribution to GDP, somewhere around 30%. Therefore, addressing this disconnect is an imperative and is key to securing long-term supplies from Nigeria. So we must all join hands in addressing the disconnect. But let's talk a little bit about Africa and where's Nigeria relative to Africa. Remember, Nigeria is an emerging democracy. Expectations are high, creating strong pressures for rapid economic development. Nigeria is also Africa's fundamental development challenge, with 20% of Africa's population, 67% of West Africa, 1 of 6 blacks in the world is a Nigerian. Significant potential existing for improvement of Nigeria's major socio-economic indicators. And indeed, failure to deliver economic revival in Nigeria will threaten the overall Millennium Development Goal for Africa. For me, we've got no choice. We have to do something. And the only way we can ensure that geopolitical tensions in Africa is not there is to deliver in terms of economic growth in Nigeria. Delivering on economic growth, what do? We got to move in 3 directions. Attracting investments for growth, efficient industry regulatory and oversight roles, and stimulating growth, domestic labor, and capital. Delivering in the 3 directions, attracting investment for growth means oil production capacity growth, and we're delivering on that. Gas utilization, which I take substantively this evening. Stimulation of local labor and capital. This we're doing through cross-sectorial linkages, the National Content Initiative, the Ethanol Initiative, gas to power. We're powering the system with gas. Institutional reforms. The industry restructuring, OGIC, downstream reforms, gas reforms, the NNPC transformation itself, and we discuss all this. If I run through this checklist and I take the oil side, for instance, between 1990 and 2004, the industry attracted investments of the order of 80 billion. And the coming 4 years between 2005 2008, $67 billion will be spent. And when this is done, we deliver on our goal of 4.1 million barrels per day. If that is done, even at $30 per barrel, we will be delivering an annual revenue of $30 billion, just on the oil side alone. In terms of stimulating local labor and capital, $12 billion is spent each year. And understanding this is key to our local content agenda. This is spent in three main areas: materials and manufacturing, fabrication and installation, engineering and construction. And the strategy is, one, to leverage transferability of the three primary oil industry focus areas of engineering, fabrication, and manufacturing, and B, exploiting the industry linkages to penetrate key service sectors such as banking, shipping, etc., as a basis for driving economic growth. In doing this, the first thing we must agree with ourselves is there a gap between aspiration and what is on ground? And we've examined 4 areas: human resource development, where we now know there is a gap, and a serious one, and we're beginning to train engineers, welders, fitters, crewmen, divers. In facilities and infrastructure, the gap exists there, and we are beginning to talk of deep sea port in 2 places. We're galvanizing plant, we are upgrading existing local yards, and we're inviting new fabricators to Nigeria. And as I'm in Houston here, the same story, we are inviting people to invest in Nigeria. We're inviting fabricators to the country. Materials and manufacturing, again, we look at the gas and we're dealing with that. Institutions and systems, Petroleum Training Institute, we're relating its curricula to our needs, updating university and polytechnic curricula. The Nigerian Institute of Welding, we're doing something there. And the National Content Support Fund, that should be launched by June of this year with an initial $300 million. Still talking of cross-sectorial linkages, the Ethanol Initiative. We are progressing this. Of course, the initiative will exploit the multiplier effect of the oil sector in agriculture and drive economic growth. It will reduce domestic use of petrol, free up more crude for export, and position Nigeria for development of green fuels. The reforms in terms of institutions. Of course, most efficient oil and gas sectors have 3 roles, and the roles are distinct, and you separate the roles of the different participants: the ministry, the national company, and the regulator. You have to separate the roles, and everybody has to have clarity of roles. In the past, NNPC used to be at the center. It's the regulator, it's the policy maker, as well as the operator. Today, we are beginning to move to that corner where we deal with operations, and the regulator is the Department of Petroleum Resources for technical issues. You have the commercial regulator. Incidentally, the chairman of PPPRA is sitting here in this hall, and the technical regulator director is sitting here in this hall. Of course, we are there in our own corner in NNPC, and the ministry, the permanent secretary is also here in this hall. So we are doing this, and this has been addressed by the OGIC set up by government. That's a key change over what we have had in the past. The NNPC itself, we are transforming. First, the diagnostic phase, addressing strategy, processes, people, technology. And now we are in the second phase, that is implementation, implementing new systems, processes, procedures, and policies, training and building the skills for NNPC people, and implementing new ways of doing business. Talking of new ways of doing business, improved MIS systems, IT transformation, industry, electronic marketplace, which brings transparency in business. You now award the contracts online, and everybody is there to see what is happening. There's no way to do it otherwise. There's the JQS. There's process re-engineering, procurement, logistics, human resource process re-engineering. When we came in, we did the diagnostic and found that a lot of the staff were in the age bracket 45 and above. I think we came in and we met 17,000 staff strength. In 1 year, that was reduced to 9,000. Now we are beginning to bring in people from all over the world, world-class staff. We've had at least 50 in, and this year we're adding more. In terms of the plants, refinery, and so on, we are addressing asset management, and we're also addressing hydrocarbon loss management, and we're beginning to get improvements, and you'll see what has happened as a result of all these interventions. The downstream oil reform, and I have Chief Badamosi sitting here in this hall. It's my pleasure to let you know that he's been so key in this area. We've worked together on this since 2002. The regulation on the downstream commenced in 2003, licensing of marketers, retail business, liberalized, opening imports and wholesale distribution. Of course, price liberalization. And for the 3 prime products, we totally liberalized. You have the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency, which is the regulator for the downstream. And in more recent time, we have a self-adjusting mechanism, which we call the price modulator, that tends to adjust and make sure that we can keep our price liberalization working, even in the face of hikes that we get to see these days. Refinery and petrochemical plant privatization, as I'm talking, is ongoing in Nigeria, and we are also beginning to examine open access to transport pipelines and depots. For instance, we are already discussing with some who want to use our LPG depots in Lagos and Calabar, and we are leasing it out. Apapa import reception facility we've leased out to the marketers. In the past, it's never used to be that. Today, all these are available on open access non-discriminatory basis. And as a result of that, of course, the system is, the downstream is much more vibrant than it used to be. So let's now talk a little bit about gas. 7th largest gas reserves in the world, as the ambassador told us earlier. Significant reserves upside as no dedicated gas exploration to date. High-grade gas quality, 0% sulfur, rich in liquids. However, there are barriers in the development of the gas sector. Pricing, fiscal terms, institutional infrastructural arrangements, legal and regulatory framework, financing. And these barriers combine to delay the pace of growth and economic impact of gas to date. So we must address the issue of the barriers. Pricing, we do know that gas prices are possibly lowest in Nigeria when you relate it to other parts of the world. You can see the red circles. Those are prices for Nigeria in relation to what it is in other parts of the world. And this has been a big disincentive to sector growth. Domestic gas prices are below the cost of supply, leading to subsidy, and we tend to compensate distortions with fiscal arrangements. Price setting, traditionally discretionary and opaque, no basis for setting the tariffs and wholesale prices. Power transmission tariffs do not at present give pricing signals to the gas sector. In terms of fiscal arrangements, the FGN share is low, and fiscal regime for the downstream investment is favorable to existing upstream investors, as if everybody must have a tax-paying status in the upstream. In essence, if you don't have a tax-paying status in the upstream, you are shut out. No incentives to contain costs, as capital costs offset a higher marginal rate than the rate at which profits are assessed. Giving tax relief as an uplift of capital expenditure encourages gold plating. All these combine to make things difficult. Of course, the integrated role of NNPC as the regulator, marketer, transporter, and everything did not help matters, and that has been addressed by the OGIC. Highly integrated export-oriented structure of the upstream sector also was a problem. We also have problem of community and environmental issues. Legal and regulatory framework, existing framework written primarily for oil, insufficient legislative or regulatory provision for activities in the downstream, such as transmission, distribution, and supply of gas. Existing contractual arrangements are opaque and potentially discriminatory, and therefore no robust platform from which to develop the downstream sector. No law to prevent abuse of market power or anti-competition behavior. And of course, no level playing field in terms of fiscal reforms. Financing, as we said earlier, some $33 billion will be spent in the 4 years, 2005 to 2008 for gas, but there is always payment risk as a result of non-performing parastatals who will pay low price and also will not even perform in terms of meeting the payment. So all these are issues that we've got to address, and therefore what are the interventions that we've done? Four-pronged approach in terms of intervention: the natural gas policy, promoting public-private sector partnership, enabling rapid commercialization of natural gas resources. We also have the legislative review, the DGA, Downstream Gas Act, addressing legal regulatory policy constraints, fiscal reform, which develops and legislates a new fiscal regime for gas projects and ensuring that Nigeria receives a fair share of the economic rent. Of course, we also have the Gas Master Plan, which provides a framework for Nigeria to maximize value from its gas resources from both domestic and export markets. Now let's run through the checklist. The DGA, the Downstream Gas Act, has key provisions for functions and powers of the Minister for Petroleum Resources, establishment of the Gas Regulatory Commission for Commercial Regulation, the licensing regime, unbundling of the Nigerian Gas Company, NGC, into transmission and marketing companies. Third-party access, it also provides for pricing regime, customer protection and public service obligations, and competition and market regulation. Of course, the fiscal reform in the 80s, we were talking of ACFA. In the pre-ACFA days, those were the days we were talking of G factor, which elevates the royalty. Then we moved in 1992 to ACFA, where royalty was brought down to 5 to 7%, and with CETA tax rate of 30%. CapEx in associated gas development treated as oil costs, relieved against PPT income at 85%, and we'll see the implication of this very soon. Today, later we also have other decrees which brought it royalty down to 0, and some other enactments, like some enactments for VAT, for GTL, case-by-case, feed-by-feed applications of fiscal laws. Of course, these incentives were made under the assumption that all operators are integrated and everybody has an upstream taxpaying status. However, these assumptions are not true and could not have been true, and they have tended to impede growth of the sector. So, what have we done? We've gone to a new scheme, the NACFRA, the sliding out factor, which allows government and investors to share in the upside and downside, and least profitable projects taxed at a tax rate very low, 20%. Of course, as you begin to make more and more profit, then the taxation begins to go up and up until you hit 75%. And what are the benefits? Flexible, progressive, simple, profit-focused, early revenue timing for government, key to sustained supplies, investment decision neutral, level playing field for everybody, including the new and the old, the upstream ones and the non-upstream ones, and everybody is taken care of. And it's beautiful and simple for everybody to apply. And what does it mean in reality, in terms of performance? The yellow shows what we have in the system. It shows that for a non-performing field or at the early stage, when you have not recovered costs, all that government is doing is dipping its hand into the pocket and subsidizing the project. There's nowhere in the world that is ever done. However, what we've done is the red line, which shows that at all time, government will have a little piece of the pie. And as the project begins to improve more and more, then you give more and more to government. And as the project economics worsens, government, the system, the mechanism is self-adjusting, that it comes to your aid as the project worsens. And it's good for everybody. The Gas Master Plan. 2 levers: maximizing the multiplier effect of gas in the domestic economy and optimizing Nigeria's share and competitiveness in high-value export markets. We are already progressing with this, but let's see what this means. All the gas fees can be put together in 4-5 nodes. So what we've done is move from feed-by-feed development, feed-by-feed fiscal scheme, feed-by-feed incentives to a nodal architecture. And we're looking at 4 nodes in this case. 5 key concepts of the gas master plan. Center processing. So once you take this node, then you can do the CPF, center processing facility, which synergizes and reduces costs and is helpful in terms of rapid supply availability. You also have integrated pipeline network, uniform pricing mechanism, and standardized gas specification and reserves growth. So that's what we are doing there. A few success stories as a result of these interventions. And let's look at this. In terms of LNG, we are on course to being the second fastest growing LNG capacity in the entire world. 2 greenfield LNG plants underway. Ongoing expansion of NLNG. By 2010, Nigeria could be 30% of total Atlantic LNG supply pool. That's significant. And let's take a few cases. LNG, this is a success story. We're partnering with in a major project has proved very successful. And by 2012, we should grow capacity from current 22 million tons to 30 million tons, and that will be adding significant capacity to the global market. OK LNG, 22 million tons at Olokola FTZ. Project sponsors, NNPC, Chevron, Shell, and BG, and everybody is represented here this afternoon. I guess they like to listen to what I'm saying. Project status, pre-FEED concluded December 2005, and we should be able to do FID by 2006 Q4. Brass LNG, 2 trains of 5 million tons, and of course, FID targeted for December 2006 and first cargo Q4 2010. With all these, when you stack all the LNG capacities together, you find out that Nigeria will add significant capacity to the global LNG market. We are also powering the Nigerian economy with gas sector, supporting the growth of over 15 new power plants. Plants will grow nations generating capacity from 3.5 gigawatts to 11 gigawatts by 2010. Strategy will be to stimulate domestic economic growth as energy costs reduce. In terms of consumption, you'll find out that between 2005 and 2010, gas demand in the power sector will grow from less than 1 BCF per day to almost 3 billion cubic feet per day, over 40% annual growth rate. That's significant to note. We are also relocating gas-intensive, energy-intensive industries to Nigeria, and I guess the same thing is happening everywhere else. Over 5 new fertilizer plants are being proposed, 2 methanol plants, about 4 new LPG plants, and 1 GTL plant. Of course, the fertilizer development will stimulate agricultural sector growth. Growth in other industry subsectors will increase local value added in Nigeria. And the sectorial linkage will drive gas demand from almost 0 in 1999 to over 3 billion cubic feet by 2010. What about regional integration? three key projects: the West African gas pipeline, the Equatorial Guinea gas supply, as well as the Trans-Sahara gas pipeline. Regional energy security is essential to securing sustained gas supply into the broader global market. And a few snapshots about some of these projects. The West African gas pipeline will move rapidly from 200 million standard cubic feet per day to 580 million standard cubic feet per day, and this commissioning will be taking place before the end of the year. It's going well. Equatorial Guinea, supply of about 600 million standard cubic feet per day to Equatorial Guinea by 2009, and in return, NNPC will internationalize operations in Equatorial Guinea. And regional cooperation, regional integration is taking place. We are also attracting new players. What about British Gas? And I see British Gas is sitting here in front of me. Sempra, Japan LNG, ONGC, Mittal. We are attracting new players, new participants in the Nigerian gas industry. And what's the summary of all this? You find that gas demand, if I stack all this together, the demand for gas will grow from some 1.5 BCF per day to 15 billion cubic feet per day by 2010. Gas flares will be down to 40, already down to 40% from 70% when this administration came in, and it's continued to drop so that we flare out by 2008. And the Nigerian gas demand, the rate of growth in gas demand now ranks about the highest in the world, an average annual growth of some 25%. That even the executing capacity with the industries is tough. The rate at which we now have to execute one project or the other is quite difficult. It's challenging to meet this. Of course, with all this, it translates to revenue. And in terms of revenue, from zero earning in gas in 1999 when President Obasanjo came in, we will be able to hit $13 billion earning per annum by 2012 as a result of all these initiatives. It's unlikely that I will stand down without talking about the Niger Delta, because I know the first question will be the Niger Delta. Agitation and unrest in the Niger Delta is an ongoing challenge. NNPC and partners change their social investment strategy from community assistance to sustainable community development. This approach places emphasis on greater consultation and needs analysis prior to agreeing MOUs, empowering communities to do things for themselves, local capacity building to ensure sustainability and multiply effect of intervention, using NGOs as key implementing mechanism, and operational synergy with NDDC. More robust cross-stakeholder response are now being developed by the FGN. Dialogue is the key word, and there is significant scope for peaceful and long-run stability. And let's see what we really intend to do. As we begin to address some of the problems, you start moving down on the conflict curve, and you're going up on the development curve, so that eventually you reach sustainable development, sustainable agriculture, health, potable water, power, business development. And peace and reconciliation will now be enthroned. And that's what we are doing. And The federal government is leading this initiative at the highest level, and indeed, this is at the level of Mr. President himself. And a few days ago, he came up with this initiative, and he delivered this. Federal government intervention spanning 9 areas: employment, generation, transportation, education, health, telecommunication, environment, agriculture, power, and water resources. Development projects to be executed by the federal government include creation of 20,000 new jobs for indigenes in various sectors: Army, Navy, Air Force, Police, the Federal Civil Service, including the NNPC anyway, of course. 230 billion naira for dualization of the East-West Road. Development projects to be executed also include River Niger dredging, NNPC building 12 floating stations, rural electrification for 396 communities, takeoff of Federal Polytechnic in Bayelsa, collaboration with GSM providers to extend the coverage to major towns, empowerment on the National Speed Detection and Response Agency to eliminate water pollution. This is just the federal government. Other stakeholders, the state governments themselves, the oil industry, NNPC, Share, Mobile, and everybody will be coming up on the 18th of July to deliver their own agenda. And this is being driven by Mr. President. And these bold initiatives have already generated very positive response from stakeholders, and this has doused the tension in the region. And we feel confident that we will be able to deal with this very rapidly. A few concluding remarks. World-class hydrocarbon reserves, significant upside in gas reserves. We have had track record in delivering steady production capacity growth in oil. Robust portfolio of gas projects progressing steadily. Impressive investment outlay, over 67 billion in oil and gas projects between 2005 and 2008. Clearly defined framework to stimulate local labor and capital with increased cross-sectorial linkages to drive economic growth. Rapidly transforming industry institutions to enable competitive and efficient sector operation. Stable and increasingly vibrant downstream oil sector following reforms. Robust fiscal and legislative framework to ensure sustainability of the gas sector. Increasingly level playing field for new players to further stimulate growth of sector. Fastest growing gas demand in the world. And increase revenue growth, because that's the bottom line. Growth potential from gas sector, whilst we are building a new gas industry out of the old oil industry. And if you ask me to summarize in one sentence all that I've discussed in the last 40 minutes, I will tell you this. Nigeria is now well positioned to meet the global oil and gas supply needs sustainably while ensuring ongoing wealth creation domestically. I thank you for listening.
Okay, we're getting late in the evening, but we can take 1 or 2 questions if we have one in the audience.
Yeah, I enjoyed your remarks and thank you very much. Looks like Nigeria has 3 major objectives. Number 1, to increase revenues from gas. I guess you're talking $10 billion by the turn of the decade per year, $10 billion. Second objective, create lots of jobs for Nigerians and bolster the economy. Third objective is cut flaring. Stop flaring by 2008. I'm not sure you can do all three of those at the same time. So which of those are the most important?
We will try to deliver on all. Of course, the 2008 flaring is already there as a policy. There's no going back on that. That is a given.
So stop flaring is most important?
It's a given. It's already there. It's a policy of government, and it's got to be done. And of course, on the other two, we will try as much as possible to deliver.
Could you give us an update on the status of Train 5 in the Bonny Island LNG plant? How much is the output now, and when do you expect us to reach full capacity for production?
It started a few months ago. It's not yet full capacity, but it's building up gradually. I won't be able to say exactly when we hit full capacity. And Train 6 is ongoing. Train 7, that's still on the drawing board, and we're discussing that.
Yeah, I would like to comment, especially the last, comment made by you as it relates to the Niger Delta, and especially from someone coming from that particular part of the world. I think it's about time that the government did exactly what the president has just done now, which is rather than give all those few local chiefs the incentives or the monies, you are now investing in the human resources and the infrastructure and of the people, and I commend you and the government for that.
Take one more question.
I want to piggyback for him. I have a little problem with the development prognosis for the Niger Delta, because if you look at the case study of Siberia will directly give the money and define the development. Because what I'm seeing from your graph, you are talking about telecommunications.
Can you make it a question, please?
Okay, I'm just commenting on this lecture.
Yeah, well, we'd like to.
Okay, the question is that with the NNPC, look at the Siberian program, where money and resources are defined, whereby students come out from engineering students, architecture, they go straight and do the roads. The money is there, oil companies give the resources. They don't have to go through an agency, through a government, through a local government. They go, they put the money directly to Siberia. Secondly, look at Algeria. Algeria has no contractor. The oil money is given to the people, the oil communities. Where once the economy has been defined.
Yeah, I think if you are talking of the Nigerian population, that will be almost impossible, because you won't even know. I mean, there will be no transparency. You have to do these things transparently. We are not dealing with a country of 200,000 people where you say, okay, you do this. I don't think it can work.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming this evening and participating in our program. We thank Mr. Kupolokun for his very interesting presentation, very interesting things and exciting things happening in Nigeria today. Kind of an incredible numbers, seeing the statistics of where you're going to go from 1999 in terms of the revenue stream from gas. So thank you very much, and thank you all for coming.